Jesus' Spirit appears in Jerusalem. Holy fire. Every year, in the heart of Jerusalem, a flame appears out of nowhere. No match, no spark, no human hand, just fire, rising from the place where Jesus was buried. Could this be clickbait? Inside the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, the very place believed by millions to be where Jesus was buried and resurrected, a Greek Orthodox patriarch walks alone into the tomb of Christ. He carries no lighter, no matches, no flame. He simply carries faith and unlit candles. He prays, he waits, and then the flame appears. The candles are suddenly lit. He steps out of the tomb, and what happens next sends waves through the crowd, because everyone rushes forward to share in the fire. But what exactly happens behind that sealed door? No one really knows. There are no cameras inside, no eyewitnesses, only mystery. This moment is what the Orthodox Church calls the miracle of the Holy Fire. They believe it's not just a tradition, but an act of God Himself. That Jesus Christ, the risen Lord, descends in spirit to light the first flame, as a reminder that His resurrection wasn't a moment in history. It's a miracle that continues today. But what if the fire tells a different story than we've been told? Here's how it works. It all takes place at one of the holiest locations in Christianity, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. This church stands on what many believe is Calvary and the tomb of Jesus. On Holy Saturday, the day before Easter, the building fills with thousands of believers. Some sleep outside overnight. Some travel from distant nations, waiting hours just to get close. Everyone is holding an unlit candle, waiting for the moment. And what they're about to witness is either the most divine act of the year or the most elaborate illusion ever accepted by the Church. Before the flame appears, the tomb is searched, traditionally, by representatives from other religious groups. The patriarch is escorted in. The tomb is sealed. Then silence. And in that silence, the question echoes. What exactly happens behind that sealed door? And why is no one ever allowed to see it? What happens next is never shown on camera. No one is allowed inside. But within minutes, the tomb doors open, and the patriarch steps out holding his lit candles. No explanation, no witness, just fire, already burning. The flame spreads from candle to candle, row to row, balcony to floor. It quickly fills the church, and then the streets. And then lanterns are flown to Orthodox churches around the world. In under an hour, this fire goes from a single flicker to a global phenomenon. They call it a descent, a holy visitation, as if the Spirit of Christ still touches earth, at the exact spot where He conquered death. Some eyewitnesses describe seeing a blue mist. Others say the flame floats like a ball of fire, appearing over the slab where Christ was laid. The fire is said to have unique properties. It doesn't burn skin for the first few minutes. It gives off a blue hue at first. It feels cool to the touch, as if purified by God. There are videos of people washing their faces with the flame. Others run their hands through it without flinching. Some hold it beneath paper or cloth, and nothing burns. It's called living fire. And many believe it's a physical sign that the light of Christ still lives, right now, in the same place where He rose. A living flame, a yearly sign, a claim that heaven still answers with fire. If true, this might be the last supernatural marker on earth. But not everyone agrees. Some say the miracle isn't real. Some say it's been altered over time. And some claim to have proof that the flame isn't from heaven, but from a hidden oil lamp eye. So where does the truth begin? And where might it have been replaced with something else? We'll get into that next. Let's go back, way back, to where this story really begins. Because long before cameras, YouTube, and viral videos, there was a quiet flame in Jerusalem. And over time, that flame would become one of the most talked about miracles in the Christian world. But where did it come from? The Church of the Holy Sepulchre, where this fire appears each year, was built in the 4th century under Emperor Constantine. This is the site many Christians believe is where Jesus was crucified, buried, and rose again. But even though the church was built early, the fire wasn't mentioned right away. The first detailed record of the holy fire miracle doesn't show up until about 870 AD, more than 500 years later. A monk named Bernard wrote about it during a pilgrimage to Jerusalem. By the 11th century, the tradition had spread. Crusaders mentioned it. Emperors honored it. Crowds gathered for it. And from that point on, it became a core tradition of the Eastern Orthodox Church. Could it be that something changed along the way? Something added, or even misunderstood? So why do modern accounts describe fire falling from heaven when the earliest Christians never mentioned it? So here's the first big truth bomb. The miracle of the holy fire, as we know it today, doesn't go all the way back to the early church. That doesn't make it false, but it does raise a question. If this was a sign from God tied to the resurrection, why wasn't it seen from the start? And if it wasn't there in the beginning, what does that say about what we're witnessing now? Are we seeing a true movement of the Spirit? Or are we repeating a tradition we never stopped to test? Let's fast forward a few centuries. In the 1500s, Jerusalem was under Muslim rule, and things were tense. In 1579, Orthodox Christians were denied access to the tomb during Holy Saturday. They couldn't get in to perform the ceremony. But according to tradition, the fire still came down, and not inside the tomb, but on a stone column outside. The flame was so powerful, they say, it cracked the stone. And that crack is still visible today. Whether it happened exactly that way or not, here's what's clear. Even in the middle of conflict and religious division, the miracle kept going and was respected by rulers of other faiths. That gives this event a kind of mystical legacy, not just religious, but political, not just sacred, but symbolic. And whenever something becomes both sacred and symbolic, it becomes powerful enough to shape nations. Which leads to the next big question. Could this fire have been used to protect the church's influence? Here's something else to know. In the early records, the miracle happened in public. The patriarch would stand outside the tomb. The fire would appear. Crowds would see it light up. But after the fall of Constantinople in 1453, something changed. Suddenly, the ceremony was moved inside. The fire now appeared in private, with no witnesses. The patriarch goes in alone, comes out holding a flame. Could it be that what once inspired faith eventually demanded secrecy? And that shift happened right after the formula for Greek fire, an ancient chemical flame, was lost. Coincidence? Maybe. So, what's the truth? Here's what we know for sure. First, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre is one of the oldest Christian sites on earth. The tradition of the holy fire goes back at least 1,200 years. But the earliest church fathers, even those who visited the tomb, never mention a spontaneous fire from heaven. The ceremony has changed over time, And today, the actual lighting of the flame is private. The history tells us that this isn't an unbroken original event from the time of Christ. And if it wasn't there from the beginning, what does that mean for its purpose now? And that means, if it's real, it's not about proving the resurrection. The empty tomb already did that. But what if this flame points to something else entirely? A sign for the final days? A warning disguised as wonder? Let's be honest. If this wasn't such a big deal, people wouldn't be talking about it. But they are. And not just online. Not just on Orthodox blogs. We're talking about millions of people. Some risk everything to witness it, traveling across continents. Let's explore what makes so many people, even skeptics, say, maybe there's more going on here than meets the eye. That's not a marketing stunt. That's not a new trend. Arab historians mentioned it. Even some Muslim rulers protected the ceremony. You might wonder, why would non-Christians care about this event? Because even they saw that something strange, something powerful, was happening inside that tomb. And if opposing faiths saw light in the same fire, what were they really seeing? And for centuries, these testimonies didn't fade. They grew. And here's the part that stuns people the most. The fire, they say, doesn't burn. For 33 minutes, the same number of years Jesus walked the earth, it's said to be gentle, soft, holy. Coincidence? Or divine signature? People place their hands over it, through it. They wash their faces with it. They hold paper to it. And for the first few moments, nothing catches fire. Many claim the fire stays cool for 33 minutes. One for each year Jesus walked the earth. I've touched it, one priest said. I've passed it over my beard and face. It never burns. I've never seen anything like it. That's not just poetic. That's personal. And that kind of experience sticks with people for life. But if the fire is holy, why does it come in secret? Why has no camera ever captured the exact moment it appears? Another reason this miracle stands out? It's only at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem. No other place. No other church. No other tomb. Only there. Only once a year. Now pause and think about that. If this were a trick, wouldn't someone try to copy it elsewhere by now? Wouldn't someone bring the holy fire show to Rome, or Moscow, or anywhere else? But it hasn't happened, because no one else can. That makes this more than a miracle. It makes it a mystery bound to one location in all the world. A flame that refuses to be duplicated, and forces us to ask, is the tomb still bearing witness? Could this be more than just a location? Could it be a gate between heaven and earth? One that only opens once a year? And if so, what is it preparing us for? That exclusivity, whether divine or not, is part of why the mystery stays alive. Because if this fire is real, then it's more than tradition. It's a reminder that maybe Jesus didn't just rise once, maybe he still returns in flame. And if he still returns, what comes next? When the fire appears, it doesn't stay in Jerusalem. When the fire appears, it doesn't stay in Jerusalem, it travels. Leaders from Greece, Russia, Ukraine, Ethiopia, they carry the flame back home in sealed lanterns. Planes fly it across continents. Cathedrals receive it. Believers light their candles with it. And some say they feel the presence of God in that very moment. It becomes more than just a fire. It becomes a symbol, a connection, a reminder that light still shines in the darkness, and the tomb is still empty. What starts as a flicker in Jerusalem might one day become a blaze that surrounds the Earth. Let's talk science for a second. In 2016, a Russian physicist named Andrei Volkov tested the holy fire moments after it was brought out. He measured the heat and found something strange. The flame was only 107 degrees Fahrenheit, far cooler than any normal candle. That's barely hot enough to warm your hands, much less burn anything. But after about 15 minutes, it returned to normal flame temperature. Was that a fluke? Or is it further proof that the first moments of this fire really are different? Could this strange temperature shift be the physical evidence of a spiritual reality? And if so, what does that say about the source of this fire? Nobody can say for sure, but it's just another reason people still believe. Because the deeper we look, the harder it becomes to explain it away. And maybe that's the point. Even with controversy, even with skepticism, even with cameras, interviews, and rumors of trickery, people still come. They wait in long lines. They stand shoulder to shoulder in the heat. They climb over barricades. Some even risk being trampled, just to get one glimpse of that flame. So, let's be honest. Could this fire have natural explanations? Yes. Could it be tradition passed down so long, people forgot where it started? Maybe. Could it be both? A sacred symbol and a man-made ritual? That's possible too. But whatever it is, the faith it stirs is real. And for many, that's enough to keep believing and to keep coming back. But is faith still faith when it's built on something we're not allowed to question? Here's a harder truth. Miracles don't always lead to faith. In fact, sometimes they just lead to more confusion. However, make no mistake, Jesus will return to Jerusalem. This side of Jesus will leave you speechless. Most people know Jesus as the gentle shepherd, the healer, the teacher. We picture him holding a lamb. We hear him saying, "Love your neighbor as yourself." But what if I told you there's a side of Jesus that many people don't talk about? Most people never hear this in church, and when you find out why, it'll shake your understanding of him forever. Some avoid this part of the Bible for a reason, because once it's out, there's no turning back. A side that's not just about peace and kindness, but about power, justice, and awe. And when you see this side of him, you might feel uncomfortable, even scared. But that's exactly why you need to see it. It will leave you speechless. Because what he's about to do isn't just unexpected. It's terrifying, powerful, and unstoppable. But here's the risk. Once you understand this, you're responsible for what you do next. I'm serious. This isn't just a detail in the Bible. It's a shocking truth that shows who Jesus really is and what he's about to do very soon. Ignore this, and you might miss the most important moment of your life. Are you ready? Because what you're about to discover changes everything. Few people are truly prepared for what's coming next, but you need to be before it's too late. In the Bible, Jesus is called many names. He's called the Lamb of God because he gave his life for us. He's called the Good Shepherd because he leads us with love. But there's another name, a side of Jesus that people often miss. And this name reveals the side of Jesus the world tries to ignore, the one that demands a decision from all of us. Let's read it together. Revelation 19 verse 11 says, "Now I saw heaven opened, and behold, a white horse. And he who sat on him was called Faithful and True, and in righteousness he judges and makes war." Wait, judges and makes war? Yes. This is Jesus as the King, the warrior. the judge of the world. After the resurrection of the witnesses, the final judgments of God will be unleashed. The Antichrist will double down on his reign of terror. The final battle, the Battle of Armageddon, will be set in motion. The countdown begins here. What unfolds next is written, and it's more real than we've ever imagined. And from this moment on, the world will never be the same again. This is the turning point for all humanity, and what you do with it could determine your eternity. This isn't just about the past. What we're about to see has everything to do with the return of Jesus himself. But here's the thing. No matter how powerful the Antichrist appears, his time is running out. The bridegroom arrives. But what a sight! This is a side of Jesus that no one has seen before. He's complex, and now we're seeing him in a completely new way. One thing is clear. While Jesus was not a fighter during his first visit to earth, he will be when he comes again. You can't put Jesus in a box or label him as just one thing. He's a warrior when he needs to be. The Son of God goes forth to war. The first time Jesus came to earth, he rode a donkey. That symbolized peace. But the second time, he won't be on a donkey. He'll be on a horse, the mount of a warrior. He's coming to fight. The difference between his two comings is this. The first time, he came to save and heal. The second time, he's coming to judge and fight. If you can't see both of these sides of Jesus, then you don't fully know him yet. You've only seen part of who he is, and your view of him is too small. This may stretch you, and some people feel so uncomfortable with this side of Jesus that they try to avoid it by going back to the Gospels. But you can't do that. If you do, you're running away from Jesus. And if you turn away now, you might miss the most important truth of your life. What happens next will demand a response. Let's look at this picture of him. First, look at the horse. It's a war horse, a charger, not a donkey. A donkey isn't useful in battle, but a horse is. He has an army with him too. Look at his titles, faithful and true. He keeps his promises and his word. Look at his purpose. He's coming to judge and make war in righteousness. Some people laugh at the idea of a just war, but here it is, the first and maybe the only truly just war in history. This war will be righteous. Now look at his appearance. His eyes are flaming with fire. Nothing is hidden from those eyes, and they burn with anger. He has many crowns on his head, showing his complete authority and sovereignty. Look at his names. One is the Word of God, and another is a name we don't even know. This shows a new part of his character that requires a new name. Look at his clothes. A robe that's a mix of white and red. White linen stained with blood. Sometimes, when I take communion and see the white bread and the red wine, I think of Jesus who's coming again. The same colors, white and red, remind us of his return. Look at his army behind him. During his time on earth, Jesus said, "Do you think I cannot call on my Father, and he will at once put at my disposal more than 12 legions of angels?" That's 12,000 troops. At that time, he didn't use them, but now he will, against men. Look at his weapons, a sword and a rod. The sword comes from his mouth. Jesus fights with his words, and his words can heal or destroy. Above all, look at his title, King of Kings and Lord of Lords. No matter how many kings have existed, he's the supreme king. I remember watching the coronation of Queen Elizabeth II. At one point, she was handed the Bible and told that it was the only law she was subject to. Here is the royal law. These are the lively oracles of God. In other words, even though she was queen, her authority was under someone greater, God. No one is higher than Jesus. He is the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. What an amazing picture of Jesus. Here's the interesting part. This picture is what the Jews hoped was happening on Palm Sunday. They got one thing wrong, though: the timing. Many think they misunderstood Jesus, but they didn't. They knew their Bibles and believed God would send a conqueror to save them from their enemies. They knew God promised to set Jerusalem free. The only thing they got wrong was when it would happen. When Jesus came riding in on the donkey that day, they didn't realize he wasn't coming yet to restore the kingdom to Israel. So they shouted, "Hosanna," which means "Save us now," and "Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord." Those words come from a passage where God promises to fight their enemies and defeat them. They weren't wrong to shout that. They just had the wrong time. Jesus couldn't defeat the enemies until he first came to die for them. That's what they misunderstood. When Jesus left the earth at the Ascension, his followers asked him, "Lord, are you at this time going to restore the kingdom to Israel?" They wanted to know when he would fulfill that promise. Jesus didn't say, "I'm never going to do that. You have it all wrong." Instead, he said, "It is not for you to know the times or dates the Father has set by his own authority. He will do it, but not yet." This is where many people have misunderstood Jesus. They thought he chose a donkey because he would never fight. But that's not true. It was because it wasn't yet God's time to restore the kingdom. On Palm Sunday, they hoped he would take action, but it wasn't the right time. Now, in this passage, he comes to do what they had been waiting for. A very humbling thought that we can have is that the way we see Jesus in the movies and popular shows like The Chosen will not be the way we will see him again. The next time Jesus is seen, he will be very different. His appearance will be different, and he will have a new mission to fulfill. Many people wonder what Jesus looks like now and how he sounds. Amazingly, the Bible provides us the answers to this in very unique verses. We see our insight in the book of Revelation. The book of Revelation stands out from the other books of the New Testament because of its unique message.
Many seem to be confused because they do not understand the book of Revelation. However, what if there was an animation showing the entire book? Well, we created that. And to watch that, click here.